There's only one word that can be used to describe this show, and that's elegant. Actually, to be honest, I don't even think that's an elegant enough word. Hold on, give me a sec. Alright, I think I got it. This show is exquisitely ornate. Haha, look at me using these big words. But in all seriousness, those two words describe Studio Orange's Houseki no Kuni, aka Land of the Lustrous, almost to a T. Exquisite in the sense of how aesthetically beautiful everything is presented, and ornate in the sense of how each character lives up to the very word's definition of being intricately shaped, not only in design but also in character. Now, I could have titled this video something extremely cliche, like how this was the hidden gem of the season, probably even the year, which I was really tempted to do because it's as if the phrase was crafted just to describe this show. But then I thought that maybe something more relevant to the show's near-perfect implementation of CG animation techniques would be more fitting. But why limit the discussion to something that pretty much every other analysis would have already talked about in great detail? You see, while the show's CG style is one of its strong points, hell, if it wasn't CG, I'm positive it would be worse, I don't think that it's the selling point. Because a show can look absolutely gorgeous, but if the story is mediocre, then who really cares? Looks alone are not enough to captivate interest. And while the show has received a fair amount of attention on the r/anime subreddit for this exact reason, I still don't think it's been getting the attention that it deserves, since there are people who refuse to give CG-based anime the time of day regardless of the aesthetic. If you happen to be one of these people, then try not to consider this show as a traditional anime, but rather as a completely different form of medium that can only be fully portrayed and experienced through computer-generated techniques. So before I move on to what I believe kept me coming back each episode, let me quickly show you a scene that I feel is better at expressing my point than I ever could. Now that you've briefly experienced what I was trying to express in a typical show-don't-tell fashion, you may be wondering what aspect of this series could possibly be better than that eyegasm of a clip that you just watched. For me personally, it's either the simplistic intricacies of each character, or the enigma of a world that's slowly revealed to us episode after episode as the plot unravels. Both, in my opinion, are on equal footing, so I guess I'll just talk about both. Assuming that you haven't watched this show already, I'll try to give the briefest spoiler-free summary that I can come up with, since part of the experience that comes from watching it is learning how this world came to be from the perspective of our protagonist, Phosphophyllite, a genderless gem who's trying to find her place in the world, while at the same time uncovers its secrets, albeit as a byproduct of the former. There are currently 28 of these gems that inhabit what can only be assumed to be the only piece of known land in the world. Each gem has a body composition that is modeled and takes on the characteristics of the gemstone that they're named after. Each is classified by their hardness on the most scale and assigned a role by their sensei, the only human to be seen in the show so far. Gems are also paired up and sent out on lookout ships for spirit-like beings called Lunarians, who, as the name suggests, inhabit the moon and only appear on Earth during sunny days to hunt the gems. Although they are weak, they number in the plenty and are very capable at capturing gems when they least expect it. The gems, on the other hand, are essentially immortal, in the sense that they can live forever, and even when shattered, be put back together if most of the pieces are collected and assembled. Which brings us to an interesting mindset. Death isn't the endgame in this show. Rather, death isn't even an element. Something arguably worse than death lingers as a potential outcome in each episode. Think about it for a second. What's the worst thing that could happen to someone that can't die? Being in a state of helplessness in which you are still conscious but can't do anything about seems pretty bad. What awaits them beyond capture is just a state of purgatory where they must stay for all eternity or hope to be rescued. That lingering sense of danger that follows Foss, who finds herself at the lowest ends of the most scale, results in a much more captivating adventure. You find yourself constantly wondering how one of her many predicaments will be solved and what repercussion will come from the aftermath, as the consequences do tend to be fairly dire. But as I describe this series, it may seem that all it is a constant back and forth between these gems and Lunarians. I assure you, the story is a lot more complex and has a lot more elements than I'm making it out to be. For starters, there's a third party, Lunarians adapt, gems can incorporate other gems into their body, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You become enthralled in this completely unique and beautiful world in which for every question answered, 3 more pop up. Your sense of curiosity derives not only from Foss's struggle to belong, but also through the actions of everyone else. Which brings me to the part of how each character can be simplistic yet intricate at the same time. Yes, the story does revolve around Foss, but it's most certainly not limited to her. With a massive cast of 20 plus gems, it would be near impossible to properly develop each of them. But as I watched this show, I felt that I was able to identify each of the gems as unique through their personality as well as their hidden emotions that only circumvent through subtle actions. You realize that these gems, who've been alive for hundreds and some even thousands of years, do harbor feelings of doubt, regret, intrigue, and even love or hate. It's just a matter of bearing witness to how each of them deal with it. On the other hand, each gem is not so shrouded in mystery that you're unable to see their individuality after their little screen time. Here, let me give you a few examples of how easily I can characterize them. Foss is goofy and determined. Shinsha is lonely yet compassionate to others. Diamond is gentle and kind, and most likely considered best gem. Bort is battle-thirsty, always serious, and tries to place the burden on herself alone. Rutil is the eccentric doctor who has an insatiable curiosity into research. Amethyst, typical anime twins. And I'm pretty sure I could go on for all the others like Niello Diamond, Jade, Alexandrite, and so on and so forth. But I'll leave it to you to try to form your own characterizations of them. Since, after all, I feel that this show has a different message for everyone. I don't think it's a mere coincidence that the sunspots the Lunarians appear out of just so happen to take the form of Rorschach tests. I believe that as a Rorschach test is used to examine a person's inner emotions, the sunspots are symbolic of an upcoming shift in a gem's personality. As the Lunarians do make numerous appearances, they're not simply for filler action scenes. Everything in the show has significance. Every arc has meaning. And although the show doesn't reach a proper conclusion since the manga is still ongoing, it manages to tie up all loose ends in a very fashionable manner. I wasn't confused at the end, just curious. When it comes down to it though, how you perceive this show is entirely up to you. I can only express my own feelings of it through this video. You, of course, will have your own as you watch it. But I think when you reach the end, and the final orchestral version of the opening plays, you'll be able to agree with me when I say that this show is unique, it is beautiful, and it is the embodiment of elegance. So before I leave, I want you to consider this one lyric that is found in the show's opening while you experience this journey. Dreams that repeat, changing form, are the only things connecting me to here. And with that, I'll see you guys in my next video. Ciao!